The Golden Age arc is by far the most emphasized and adapted part of Berserk's story, and for good reason. But one problem I have is the fact that in both the movie trilogy and the 97 anime, the captain of the Black Dog Knights, WYALD, is completely erased from these adaptations. Although there is one particular scene involving WYALD which we can all agree shouldn't be shown on the big screen, for him to be completely removed from the Golden Age arc is very unfair towards the story, for several reasons. In the second video, I will be analysing the fight between Guts and post-transformation WYALD. Let's get started. WYALD and Guts conducted a fight which I think is severely underrated and is very unfairly overshadowed by the eclipse. This fight is in my personal top 10 favourite fights in all of Berserk, and I am surprised that not many other people included in their list. One of the reasons why this fight is so engaging is because it really pushed Guts to his limits, and it tested every aspect of his character, including his training, his body, his mind, and his loyalty. The most critical part of Guts' character this fight really pushed was his mental strength, and it demonstrated Guts' inner character development. His mental state during this battle showed off how much he had truly changed in the last few years. This inner growth is best highlighted when we compare Guts' reaction to WYALD's transformation to his reaction in the Zod fight. When Zod transformed into his apostle state, Guts froze up, sweating furiously, standing still in terror. He let this horror get the best of him as he told himself, monsters like this can't exist. This led him to fight in a very impulsive, unsuccessful way. However, this side of Guts completely changes as we can see from his reaction to WYALD's transformation. When Guts stands there, watching WYALD transform, although he does still shake and sweat anxiously, he tells himself, I was right. He's just what I imagined. He doesn't let the fear overpower and engulf him like he did with Zod. Instead, he confronts it in a willing, prepared manner. And his inner strength is showcased over and over again throughout the whole fight. The first instance of this was the way he saved Casca. Even though Guts was knocked out after being hit by the tree, when Casca was about to get raped, Guts stood up and stabbed off WYALD's cock. Straight afterwards, he tells Casca to just get moving. He confronts WYALD one more time. He says to himself, no matter what, I've got to settle the score with him, with them, by my own sword. He even starts to feel a little bit of self-doubt, but he pushes through it. Will it work? Will it really? Will my sword really work on this monster? Move. Come on, body. Forward. Move your ass forward. His emotions here are telling him that he cannot win, but he uses his inner voice to overpower himself and oppose WYALD. Another characteristic of Guts, which is showcased during this fight, is his quick-wittedness. Just like other famous main characters like Odysseus, Guts carries an ability to come up with strategies in the heat of the moment. After telling Casca to get away, Guts derives a plan to attack WYALD on his more sensitive parts, such as his mouth, his ankles, and his chest. This does somewhat work, but WYALD soon afterwards just uses his raw strength to grab and throw Guts around like a toy. Guts barely recovers, and on his second array of attacks, he cuts the front of WYALD's original body over the eye. Soon afterwards, he slices his hand. An important factor is that Guts isn't just attacking WYALD mindlessly. Instead, he consciously observes the places he just attacked, and he pays careful attention to WYALD's reactions. He realizes that although the majority of WYALD's body contains healing abilities like Zod did, his main body is still susceptible to harsh damage. He has now deduced WYALD's weakness. WYALD switches his mindset. He says, that does it. You're dead meat. Guts says back, well, let's see about that. The scene once again shows how mentally and physically tough Guts truly is. He tells himself, I'm in deep. I can hardly stand. Some cracked ribs too. Looks like I can't move much anymore. What now? What do I do? What do I have to do to win? Even though his body is so busted up from the countless attacks he had received, he still somehow stands up. And his fortitude isn't something which goes unnoticed by the others. When Casca tries to help Guts, Judo stops her and says, "Look at his eyes. He hasn't given up. He still wants to kill." However, Guts isn't the only wounded one in the battle. WYALD took some harsh damage as well, and this makes him furious. He kicks towards them one more time. This is when Guts realizes a bad problem. After dishing out and taking so much damage, his sword is on the verge of breaking apart. He realizes that he only has one more strike left, otherwise he is truly screwed. However, he looks over to the dead knight and silently stands there, thinking of something. As WYALD looks around for him, muttering his childish lines, Guts hides. He says, "I got one chance. Neither my sword nor body will take any more than that." WYALD sees someone hiding behind a tree. He figures this is Guts and walks towards it. However, when he stomps on the ground, some leaves fall from the branches. He senses someone above him. The man behind the tree turns out to be the dead knight from earlier. Without second thought, WYALD splits the tree in half. He takes the bait, and Guts initiates his final attack. In spite of all this, WYALD knew all along that this was all a trap. He looks up and says, "That was a pretty good plan though." He snaps his jab towards Guts. However, when the armor starts to crumple, he realizes that something is off. It wasn't Guts who he hit. It was just a log wearing his armor. The real Guts follows straight behind it, as he has exposed an opening in WYALD. He quickly gets his right hand in an attempt to shield himself. The sword hits his palm first, but it quickly snaps, and Guts uses the remaining sword to pierce right through the side of WYALD's neck. Now going back to what Guts told himself earlier, he said to himself that he only had one more chance before his sword broke, but he was able to use this disadvantage as an advantage. Before conducting this attack, Guts knew that WYALD was most likely going to try and block all of his attacks, so he consciously attacked him head on. He knew that his sword would break, which would give him another opportunity to attack. Although Guts successfully stabs WYALD in his most damaging area, he doesn't immediately fall down. He lets out a cry and slaps Guts, but once again, Guts doesn't give up. Instead, he continues to attack WYALD. He strangles him around the neck and stabs him one more time using his other knife, but WYALD hasn't given up either. He slaps Guts 2 more times, and although Guts does use all of his strength, he lets go when WYALD's back hits against the tree. He looks as though he will slam into the ground, but he somehow slows himself down by brushing his hand against the tree. WYALD looks down at Guts one last time, but all the blood splatters out from his head, and he falls onto the ground back first. He somehow did it. Guts won. Everyone at the scene is ecstatic. Casca runs to see if Guts is still alive. Some tears drop, and Guts gives a simple thumbs up. So looking back at this fight, WYALD tested every aspect of Guts' character. He pushed his body to the very limits, as he was thrown and bashed around countless times all throughout the fight. But he dug deep down and kept standing back up, showing off his mental toughness. The fight also forced Guts to really think and strategize about how he was going to initiate his attacks, because WYALD was far from an opponent who he could beat with physical strength alone. So that's it for this video, and in part 3 of this series, I will be talking about the symbolism and the underlying meaning of this fight.